I do feel like Mercedes, in their lineup of vehicles, of engines, the four cylinders has always been kind of like the ugly duckling. They always have like really, really odd issues. Unfortunately, you see it in the manufacturing process. They update to try to make it better. But at the end of the day, it's still, you get a V8 or a V6 and get away from those problems. So, and then their four cylinders nowadays, they're great, but tighter clearance means you really have to keep up with your maintenance. So they don't like to be abused. Extended service intervals, poor quality fuel, not changing your air filters, in which clogs up the air coming into the engine. A lot more debris comes in. The tolerances are tighter. So whenever you have an issue, it's a little bit more serious than when 20 years ago when you would have a small issue and hey, you know what, car ran great. Not anymore. So you got to stay on top of it, or else you might have serious engine issues.
So what's next for this?
Next for this is actually grabbing another known good cylinder, looking at that value when the vehicle is running, and comparing it to this possibly defective piston. So if we have 60 psi on one cylinder and 120 on another one, okay, there you go. There's your issue.
Can you talk to me about worst and best case scenarios here?
So worst case scenario, we would be looking at a cylinder head. Let's say it's losing compression, not building compression due to a bad valve seat. Worst case scenario is the piston has an issue. Either the rings, the piston itself, pretty much not letting the cylinder build pressure. When that happens, that's an engine out job, and sometimes we can't even fix the blocks because they're scored so aggressively, and it forces us to replace the whole engine assembly. So very expensive. You don't want to go down that rabbit hole.
Yes, essentially, so what we're seeing is the full four exhausts, or the full four compression cycles. So the suck, squeeze, bang, blow, what we're reading right now. Now when I blip the throttle snap it, I should have clean towers with nothing building up in between them. But when I snap it, I get buildup. So I'll do it again for you. So the small peaks in between the large peaks shouldn't be there. So that's telling us there's air entering the cylinder during the final combustion cycle. Air is entering in when it's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be sealed up, squeezes that air charge, ignites it.
So we have a mechanical issue.
What cylinder is this? Four.
Four.
You should see like a little sharp. That's the indication of the valve hitting the head closing. But and at this point, we're not blaming the valve because we know the valves are fine, but that's the indication that it's not sealing the cylinder up efficiently. It's not getting a good change of pressure quickly.
So pretty much the valves are safe. The bottom end is leaking.
That would be my assumption. Probably the rings through the cylinder wall.
So what's it like being the bearer of bad news all the time?
Unfortunately, it's a bit hard, but I do feel like our job is to just disclose the right answer to the customer, build value in the repair, explain to them the possibilities of the good and the bad, and have the customer make an educated decision on our findings. If they decide, hey, you know what, this car is not worth it to me, that's fine. We don't want to force a repair on anybody, but at least they're able to make a properly educated decision versus spending a ton of money on a car and then we have to call them back, tell them, hey, it's still another X amount, and the whole situation's bitter.
If it was your car, what would you do here in this situation?
Oh man, all right. If this was my personal vehicle, at the time I'd probably be looking at trading it in. The cost of repairs on a new engine, it's engine replacements roughly about, it ranges from 14 to 17,000 using all factory Mercedes parts with warranty. The car is maybe worth 15 to 25. That's where it becomes a little bit hard for the customer, because if they just bought it for 15 and you got to put 17 in it, it literally doesn't make sense. So unfortunately, we got to break the bad news to them of like, hey, something serious is going on, in which is now the bottom end is having a serious issue, which is being confirmed by lack of compression.
You're like the doctor giving the bad news.
I know.
Right?
Yeah, it's
Is that the hardest part of the job, or is
it is. For me, I try not to ponder too much about it, because at the end of the day, we didn't engineer it. We didn't make it. We know how to service them and fix them correctly. So, do I feel bad for them at times? Yeah, I really do. Because unfortunately, we've had customers buy cars 2 months ago, 3 months ago, and then all of a sudden a massive issue happens where a piston breaks and it damages the cylinder, damages the head. It goes out and hits the turbo. Right there, that's when you start looking into those $15,000, $16,000 repairs. And I've had customers cry on me. They're like, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, I am sorry. I really am. I don't know what to tell you. But Mercedes has been able to do some involvement in those big repairs. So that's been a saving grace, just because it's such a common issue, unfortunately.
So what would you do to avoid all this? What would you just, like, number one, you said keep up on your services. What else is there?
So a lot of stuff that you could do, unfortunately, it's a little bit difficult. For us on the technical side, we understand like any new thing that comes out is going to have bugs, it's going to have weird quirks. So the new car comes out, maybe hold off a couple of years until Mercedes has saved data, updated those parts, put it in production, and then finally at the retail, it's sold to you as a consumer. But all the early problems have already been fixed. Versus getting the first of a model, the first engine, and then coming to realize, hey, you're always at the dealership for warranty work, and it's fine, it's free. But it could also happen to where it comes out of warranty, and now it's on your dime. So then customers believe, oh, it's a bad product. It's not just Mercedes, it's all the brands. They always have this issue. So we try telling customers, obviously, first thing you're gonna buy a car, get a pre-purchase inspection. Gives you a more in-depth description of what's going on, not only physically, electrically, condition-wise, scanning it with the SDS, the factory Mercedes tool, and understanding, okay, well, what is it really hiding? Versus buying it and then getting your first service and then realizing, hey, this thing's behind on service. So we have the ability to look at Carfax to be able to determine, okay, well, from year one when it came into circulation to year 7, 5, 4, once the second customer buys a vehicle or third customer, how has it been maintained? We don't shy away from telling people, hey, this thing's behind. At times it's the right thing to do to a customer. At the end of the day, they're not paying us to be nice. They're paying us to do a proper assessment of the vehicle and be honest up front, full disclosure on what we find, and let them decide to do a proper, educated decision with that information. So typically they could go online, they could call us to schedule an appointment, pre-purchase inspection. We could do it after you purchase the vehicle, but at that point you're stuck with it. So it's a lot easier to do a pre-purchase. We could get in contact with the seller. If it's a company or a private party, they'll bring the vehicle here. We inspect the vehicle bumper to bumper, scan it, see if there's any hidden faults, disclose any leaks, any damage, any frame damage, any kind of weird stuff that we might be able to see. Gives us a more in-depth on the vehicle's current condition, so you don't get the first repair bill and it's through the roof because the previous owner has been holding off all of these maintenance items, and then the maintenance items roll over and then they're behind on actual repairs. Makes it unenjoyable for the customer. So that's what we try to prevent. It makes owning a Mercedes a lot easier. So yeah, not always the best. It's hard.